The Babylonian Civilization, grandeur of the past and an immortal legacy, in the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet, a great civilization arose, forming one of the richest and most profound chapters in human history. This was the Babylonian Civilization, which blended military power, legislative genius, artistic creativity, and scientific progress to create a world filled with myths, sciences, and laws that continue to amaze the world to this day. The beginnings of foundation and the Old Babylonian Kingdom. Amidst the rivalry between the cities of Mesopotamia, Babylon emerged as a rising power in the 18th century BCE. Initially a small and insignificant city among the Sumerian and Akkadian city-states, it transformed under Amorite rule into an ambitious young kingdom. No one was more shrewd and ambitious than King Hammurabi, who understood that military strength alone was not enough to build a great empire. Thus, his famous code of laws combining justice and severity became the cornerstone of a strong, centralized state. The Code of Hammurabi was one of the first serious attempts in history to regulate social and economic life in a written and systematic manner. It was not merely a punitive set of laws, but a comprehensive legal system governing trade, marriage, inheritance, slavery, and even wages and professional responsibilities. Hammurabi inscribed these laws on a stele of black diorite and placed it in a prominent location for all to see, ensuring that justice was not just words but a tangible reality. The Kassite era and centuries of obscurity, however, the empire built by Hammurabi did not last forever. After centuries of prosperity, Babylon was invaded by the Hittites and then fell under the control of the Kassites, a mountain people from the Zagros region. The Kassites ruled Babylon for over 4 centuries, and their reign remained somewhat obscure, as they left behind no significant civilizational achievements like their predecessors. Nevertheless, they preserved Babylonian heritage and assimilated with the local population, helping to maintain the continuity of Babylonian culture despite political changes. The Second Rise, Neo-Babylonian Empire and the era of Nebuchadnezzar. But Babylon was not destined to fade away so easily. In the 7th century BCE, the city returned to prominence under the rule of the Chaldean dynasty, which restored its ancient glory. Nebuchadnezzar II was the greatest king of this era, transforming Babylon into one of the most magnificent cities of the ancient world. Under his reign, Babylon became a center of science, art, and architecture. The Hanging Gardens were built, said to be an astonishing engineering marvel where trees and plants grew on elevated terraces to please the king's wife, who longed for the mountains of her homeland. These gardens, considered by the Greeks to be one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, remain an enigma that puzzles historians and archaeologists, as their definitive remains have never been conclusively found. Nebuchadnezzar also constructed the Grand Ishtar Gate, an architectural masterpiece adorned with colorful statues of bulls and dragons, serving as the city's main entrance. This was not mere decoration, but had deep religious and political significance, as the king sought to display Babylon's greatness and the power of its gods to all who visited. Babylon as a center of science and knowledge, Babylon was not just a city of palaces and temples, but also a hub of intellectual brilliance. The Babylonians developed mathematics and astronomy to astonishing levels. They invented the sexagesimal system, which we still use today to measure time, 60 minutes, 60 seconds, and excelled in land surveying and solving algebraic equations. In astronomy, the Babylonians were masters of their time. They recorded the keys, movements of planets and stars with remarkable precision, predicted eclipses, and established the zodiac signs that are still used in astrology today. Their temples functioned as astronomical observatories, where priests studied the skies, believing that celestial movements were messages from the gods. Religion and mythology, a world of gods and epics. The Babylonians lived in a world filled with gods and myths. Marduk, Babylon's chief deity, sat atop the Babylonian pantheon after usurping the position of older gods like Enlil. Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, was among the most popular deities, associated with tales of love and fertility. One of the greatest literary legacies of the Babylonians is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which tells the story of Uruk's king, who seeks immortality after the death of his friend Enkidu. This epic, Considered the oldest written story in history, explores profound themes such as the fear of death and humanity's struggle with destiny, making it a timeless literary work that transcends its era. Decline and fall yet. All greatness must eventually face decline. After centuries of prosperity, Babylon's power began to wane. The city was conquered by the Persians under Cyrus the Great in 539 BCE, who treated its inhabitants kindly and respected their traditions. Centuries later, Alexander the Great arrived, deeply admiring Babylon's grandeur and intended to make it the capital of his empire. However, death claimed him there in 323 BCE. Over time, Babylon's importance faded, and it was buried under the sands of time until archaeologists rediscovered it in recent centuries, allowing the world to once again witness the splendor of this civilization that shaped history. Babylon's legacy. What remains? Today, despite its fall, the Babylonian civilization never truly died. Its legacy lives on in modern legal systems, mathematics, astronomy, literature, and art. Even Hammurabi's code is considered the foundation of modern laws, and their sexagesimal system is still used in measuring angles and time. Today, the ruins of Babylon stand in Iraq as a testament to the grandeur of a civilization that once ruled the ancient world. Though its hanging gardens have vanished and the Ishtar Gate now resides in Berlin's museums, the memory of Babylon remains alive in humanity's collective consciousness, a symbol of greatness, beauty, and knowledge. In the fertile heartland of Mesopotamia, where the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates flow like lifeblood, the great kingdom of Babylon arose under the rule of King Hammurabi, that brilliant ruler who transformed Babylon from a mere small city-state into a vast empire. Hammurabi possessed keen insight and rare strategic thinking, recognizing from the moment of his ascension to the throne that military power alone was insufficient to build a great state. It required a comprehensive legal system, wise administration, and a thriving economy. The Code of Hammurabi stood as his greatest achievement, that black stele carved from hard diorite stone, bearing 282 legal articles covering all aspects of life. These laws were not rigid texts, but reflected a profound philosophy of justice and good governance. They regulated relationships between individuals, specified punishments, and established foundations for commercial transactions. Their fundamental principle was an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, while considering class distinctions between freemen and slaves. On the military front, Hammurabi demonstrated exceptional brilliance in strategy and warfare. He didn't rely on brute force alone, but employed intelligent diplomacy and strategic alliances. He launched military campaigns with calculated timing, exploiting his enemies' weaknesses and their preoccupation with other conflicts. Through a series of carefully planned battles, he succeeded in unifying the cities of Mesopotamia under his rule. His victory over the kingdom of Larsa stood out as one of his most notable triumphs, where after a prolonged siege and clever war of attrition, he incorporated this wealthy kingdom into his domain. In administration and governance, Hammurabi excelled at state organization. He divided his kingdom into provinces, appointing governors directly accountable to him. He established an advanced postal system for transmitting messages and reports, along with a precise system for tax collection and resource distribution. He personally supervised his governor's work and listened to his subjects' complaints, making his administrative system a model for the ancient world. Hammurabi didn't neglect the economic aspect, paying particular attention to agriculture. He constructed a network of canals that protected lands from destructive floods and provided irrigation for crops. He regulated commercial exchange, established standards for weights and measures, and minted unified currency that facilitated trade between different cities. Under his rule, Babylon became an important commercial hub where goods flowed in from across the known world. Religiously, Hammurabi worked to unify beliefs within his kingdom. He elevated Marduk, Babylon's patron, god, to the head of the pantheon, using religion as a tool for political and cultural unification. He built magnificent temples, cared for worship rituals, and priests in his era enjoyed prominent status in society. In architecture and construction, Babylon witnessed significant architectural renaissance during Hammurabi's reign. He fortified the city with massive walls, built splendid palaces, and erected grand temples. The ziggurats, those stepped temples connecting earth to heaven, stood among the most prominent features of Babylonian architecture during his rule. On the social level, Hammurabi sought balance between classes. Although his laws distinguished between freemen and slaves, they guaranteed rights for the weak and protected them from exploitation by the strong. He regulated family relations and established laws for inheritance, marriage, and divorce, contributing to social stability. Education received considerable attention during Hammurabi's reign. Schools teaching cuneiform writing proliferated, and libraries preserving knowledge of medicine, mathematics, and astronomy flourished. The scribes, the educated elite, were among the most respected groups in Babylonian society. Hammurabi's achievements left a profound impact on human civilization. His code wasn't merely a set of laws, but a complete philosophy of governance combining justice and wisdom. His administrative and economic systems became models for subsequent states. Even today, thousands of years later, Hammurabi's name still resonates as one of humanity's greatest legislators and rulers in history. In the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, where the first great human civilizations flourished, the Babylonians made fundamental contributions to the development of legal systems that continue to influence concepts of justice to this day. The Code of Hammurabi was not merely a primitive set of punishments, but rather a comprehensive legal system reflecting a profound philosophical vision for organizing human society. This code represented a qualitative leap in human history, from rule by might and tribal custom to governance through written, proclaimed law. The most prominent feature of the Babylonian legal revolution was the transformation of laws from mere oral traditions passed down through generations to cuneiform, texts inscribed on clay tablets and stone steles. This shift from oral to written was not simply a change in documentation methods, but rather a major civilizational transition that moved humanity from spontaneity and randomness to an era of legal organization and stability. The Babylonians understood that social stability could only be achieved through clear, publicly declared legal rules, making their legal system comprehensive enough to cover all aspects of life. In the realm of punishments, the Babylonians established the principle of equivalent retribution, famously expressed as an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. However, deeper examination reveals this principle was not primitive as some portray it, but rather represented tremendous legal progress for its time. It set limits on excessive personal vengeance, transforming punishment from random retaliatory acts to legally defined sanctions proportionate to crimes. Babylonian law also early recognized mitigating circumstances, with punishments varying according to intent and situational factors surrounding offenses. In commercial and economic transactions, the Babylonians created remarkably precise legal regulations centuries ahead of their time. They systematized contracts for partnerships, sales, and mortgages, established laws governing creditor-debtor relationships, and set caps on loan interest rates. They implemented rigorous quality control and consumer protection systems. Builders, whose houses collapsed due to negligence, bore full responsibility. All these legal regulations were meticulously documented on clay tablets, with archaeological excavations revealing thousands of such contracts dating back to the Babylonian era. Regarding personal status laws, the Babylonians developed advanced family legislation, defining spousal rights in marriage and divorce while regulating dowries and inheritance. They protected children's rights in cases of divorce and adoption, with laws safeguarding widows and divorced women. All this indicates sophisticated legal awareness about protecting society's fundamental unit, the family. In judicial matters, the Babylonians established an integrated litigation system with specialized courts and multiple appeal levels. They developed rules of evidence based on witnesses, oaths, and circumstantial evidence, emphasizing justice in judicial procedures. Their judgments were fair and evidence-based, with defendants entitled to self-defense. Remarkably, the Babylonian legal experiment was not isolated from other civilizational aspects, but part of an integrated system encompassing religion, economy, and administration. Babylonian law was closely tied to religion, with justice viewed as divine command and the king divinely tasked with dispensing justice. Moreover, Babylon's commercial and economic prosperity largely depended on the legal stability provided by its legal code. The Babylonians left an enormous legal legacy influencing subsequent civilizations, from ancient Hebrew laws through Roman jurisprudence to certain contemporary legal principles. Studying Babylonian law reveals early legal genius that sought balance between societal interests and individual rights, between legal rigor and human circumstances. Babylon was truly the cradle of humanity's first integrated legal systems. In the heart of the great Babylonian civilization, where knowledge, power, and spirituality flourished in remarkable harmony, the god Marduk emerged not merely as one deity, among many in the Mesopotamian pantheon, but as a supreme cosmic force embodying Babylon's identity and aspirations. The worship of Marduk transcended conventional religious rituals. It constituted a complex system connecting heaven and earth, ruler and subject, past and future. In ancient times, before Babylon rose as a supreme power, Marduk was but a local deity of limited significance, a god of storms and vegetation. Yet as Babylon's political star ascended, so too did Marduk's position in the divine hierarchy. This symbiotic relationship between city and deity represented a unique phenomenon in ancient history, where the god's prestige grew in tandem with his city's Marduk's greatness, becoming the mirror of Babylon's own magnificence. The Babylonian creation epic, Enuma Elish, inscribed on clay tablets, served as the grand literary instrument through which Marduk's supremacy was established. This epic recounts how Marduk led the divine army in a fateful battle against Tiamat, the primordial forces of chaos, and how from her dismembered body he fashioned heaven and earth. Far from being merely a creation myth, this narrative functioned as a profound political manifesto legitimizing Babylon's hegemony over other Mesopotamian cities, just as it legitimized Marduk's dominion over their gods. Within the great Esagila temple, considered the world's center in Babylonian theology, Marduk's golden statue resided in the Holy of Holies, surrounded by an aura of sanctity and awe. Priests performed daily rituals with meticulous precision, believing these ceremonies essential for maintaining cosmic order and warding off chaos. Every movement, every word, every gesture in these rituals was carefully calculated, for any mistake might endanger the world. Marduk's relationship with political power was not incidental, but fundamental. Babylonian kings, from Hammurabi to Nebuchadnezzar, too derived their legitimacy from being chosen by Marduk. The royal coronation occurred during the magnificent Akitu, New Year festival, where the king would grasp the hand of Marduk's statue in a symbolic ritual proclaiming the god's favor and endorsement. The 12-day Akitu festival stood as Babylon's greatest religious celebration. During this event, the Enuma Elish was dramatically reenacted, while the king performed symbolic acts of humility before Marduk, affirming earthly power's submission to divine authority. The king's coronation would then be renewed in a spectacular ceremony blending sacred and secular, divine and mortal. Marduk was not solely a god of kings and priests, but permeated commoners' daily lives. Babylonians petitioned him for health, commercial success, fertility, and protection. Small household statues of the deity were commonplace, and people offered sacrifices during special occasions. In intellectual spheres, Marduk became associated with wisdom and astronomy. Scribes and scholars made offerings seeking his assistance in unraveling cosmic mysteries. Identified with the planet Jupiter, whose movements Babylonians meticulously tracked as divine messages, Marduk in Babylonian theology was not only world creator, but also celestial choreographer. As the Babylonian Empire expanded, so did Marduk's influence. From local patron deity, he became Mesopotamia's supreme god. Various kings attempted to unify conquered regions' deities under Marduk's authority, seeking religious consolidation to match political unity. Yet Marduk's trajectory faced challenges. When Babylon fell under Persian rule, his prominence waned. Nevertheless, his influence persisted in subsequent religions. Scholars note parallels between Marduk's battle with Tiamat and the Old Testament's divine struggle against primordial chaos. Certain Marduk attributes resurfaced in later civilizations' deities. Marduk represented more than a Babylonian god. He constituted a comprehensive ideological system, the focal point of an intricate doctrine connecting creation, power, and cosmos. His worship reflected the Babylonian worldview where sacred and profane, political and religious, individual and collective were interwoven into a single fabric. Studying Marduk's role in Babylonian civilization reveals not merely an ancient religious system, but a complete cultural vision that sought to explain humanity's cosmic position, the human-divine relationship, and the nature of legitimate authority. Marduk was the divine embodiment of Babylon's grandeur, and when Babylon fell, an entire universe of beliefs and rituals surrounding this great deity collapsed with it. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, an architectural legacy. Across the ages, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon have long remained an enigma that puzzles historians and archaeologists. They stand as the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world for which no conclusive physical evidence has been found. Yet their influence on architecture through the ages remains undeniable. These legendary gardens transcended their status as mere architectural marvels to become a source of inspiration for artists and architects across millennia. In the heart of the arid desert, where the sun's heat shimmers above the plains of Mesopotamia, legends tell of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon ascending skyward like a vibrant green mountain. This unique architectural masterpiece consisted of a series of ascending terraces, each covered with different species of trees and plants brought from the farthest reaches of the Babylonian Empire. What amazed ancient historians like Herodotus and Strabo wasn't just their height, but the complex engineering system that kept these plants alive in such a harsh climate. The engineering challenges faced by Babylonian builders were immense. How could water be transported to the top of these gardens in an era before modern pumps? Ancient texts suggest the Babylonians developed an intricate system of water channels and streams, possibly using what we now call the Archimedes screw, centuries before Archimedes himself. Water was lifted from the Euphrates River through a series of hollow columns, then distributed to various garden levels through precisely crafted channels. The genius of the design wasn't limited to the water system alone, but extended to construction methods. Babylonian engineers used successive layers of moisture-resistant materials to protect supporting structures from erosion. Palm trunks were placed over layers of reeds and bitumen, then covered with stone and lead layers to prevent water seepage into foundational structures. This multi-layered design demonstrated advanced understanding of material properties and weather resistance. During the Hellenistic period, many rulers attempted to replicate this architectural wonder. In Alexandria, the Ptolemies built royal gardens inspired by the Babylonian legend. The Seleucid palaces in Syria featured terraced gardens attempting to mimic the Babylonian marvel. Some historians even believe the concept of hanging gardens traveled to India, where it later influenced the design of the Taj Mahal gardens. When the Romans conquered the East, they brought the concept of terraced gardens to Europe. Luxurious. Roman villas began incorporating multi-level indoor gardens, with complex fountains and irrigation systems. Some historians believe the gardens of the Casium Palace in Rome represented an attempt to recreate the hanging gardens on a smaller scale. In the Middle Ages, the Hanging Gardens transformed into a legend that inspired Renaissance artists and architects. Many architects attempted to reinterpret this wonder in their drawings. Leonardo da Vinci himself designed terraced garden concepts inspired by historical accounts of Babylon's gardens. The famous gardens of the Palace of Versailles in France clearly bore the imprint of the Babylonian idea of merging architecture with nature. In modern times, we see the influence of the Hanging Gardens in numerous architectural designs. The green, skyscrapers of Singapore, vertical gardens in Paris, and even some garden designs in Dubai all carry the spirit of that ancient Babylonian innovation. The basic concept has evolved from mere hanging gardens to an architectural philosophy integrating nature into the heart of modern cities. On a technical level, the Hanging Gardens inspired the development of modern irrigation systems. The fundamental concept of watering plants at different heights without water waste follows the same principle as modern drip irrigation systems. The Babylonians' use of insulating materials in construction became the foundation for contemporary thermal and waterproof insulation in architecture. Aesthetically, the Hanging Gardens redefined the relationship between architecture and nature. Buildings were no longer just rigid structures but could become carriers of plant life. This vision underpins many modern architectural movements seeking to integrate green spaces into urban design. In urban planning, the concept of hanging gardens presented an early solution to the problem of green spaces in dense cities. Rather than horizontal expansion requiring vast areas, the Babylonians offered a vertical solution applicable even in the most crowded cities. This same principle underlies today's concepts of green roofs and vertical gardens in urban areas. Despite all these influences, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon remain a mystery that perplexes researchers. Did they truly exist? If so, what precise techniques did the ancient builders use? These questions remain unanswered definitively, but they don't negate the profound impact the concept of these gardens has had on global architectural history. From ancient Babylon to the cities of the future, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon stand as testament to human creativity that transcends time and space. They were more than just an architectural landmark. They represented a bold vision of the relationship between humans and nature, between stone and leaf, between earth and sky. This is precisely what makes them, even in the absence of physical evidence, one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements throughout history. Tarjama ila al-Ingliziyya, the Tower of Babel, an architectural and symbolic marvel of ancient Babylon, the Tower of Babel. That legendary structure, which has stood through the ages as a symbol of mankind's defiance of natural laws and his ambition to reach the heavens. The myth tells us this towering edifice was a bold human attempt to ascend to the level of the gods, but historical truth reveals a far more complex and fascinating story. In the fertile land of Mesopotamia, where humanity's first great civilizations were born, the Babylonians constructed massive buildings solely for worship and communion with their deities, and the Tower of Babel, or the Babylonian Ziggurat, represented the crowning achievement of this unique architectural and religious tradition. Archaeological studies indicate the tower was not a standalone structure, but rather part of an enormous religious complex at the heart of the great city of Babylon. The ziggurat was a massive stepped structure composed of several levels, each smaller than the one below it, giving it a breathtaking pyramidal form. The building materials reflected the Babylonians' architectural ingenuity, using millions of mud bricks for the inner structure while facing the exterior with polished fired bricks, giving the tower a gleaming appearance visible from great distances. The tower held profound religious significance in Babylonian belief, representing a bridge connecting the human world with the divine. At its summit stood a small temple dedicated to Marduk, the chief god of the Babylonian pantheon. Priests would ascend to this temple to perform religious rituals and observe the stars, as the ziggurat was closely connected with the Babylonians' advanced astronomical knowledge. The tower was not merely a place of worship, but also an astronomical observatory and laboratory for studying planetary movements that Babylonians believed carried divine messages. Ancient Babylonian texts describe the tower as the foundation, house between heaven and earth, reflecting the prevailing belief that it was the center of the universe. The ascent to the tower's summit represented a symbolic journey from earth to heaven, from the mortal realm to that of the immortals. This profound religious concept is what transformed the tower from an ordinary building into an important religious and civilizational symbol. On an engineering level, the tower represented an unprecedented achievement in ancient architectural history. Estimates suggest its height exceeded 90 meters, a staggering accomplishment for that era. Babylonian builders employed sophisticated techniques to ensure structural stability, including a complex drainage system to prevent water seepage into the foundations, and carefully calculated sloping angles to evenly distribute weight. All these details testify to the advanced level Babylonian engineers had reached in construction arts. During the Neo-Babylonian period, King Nebuchadnezzar II rebuilt and expanded the tower, making it one of the most spectacular structures of the ancient world. Inscriptions left by this great monarch describe how he brought workers and materials from across the empire to complete this massive project. The tower's reconstruction was part of Nebuchadnezzar II's vision to make Babylon the world's most magnificent city, a vision he truly realized during his reign. Yet the tower's story was not without challenges. It suffered destruction multiple times due to wars and natural disasters, with each ruin followed by reconstruction and renewal, demonstrating the immense cultural importance it held for the Babylonians. When the Greek historian Herodotus visited Babylon in the 5th century BCE, he noted the tower still stood, though in poor condition, indicating its endurance long after the Babylonian Empire's fall. In modern times, the Tower of Babel has become a symbol of boundless human ambition and the pride that may lead to downfall. It has inspired numerous literary and artistic works, becoming a subject of study and analysis across multiple disciplines from theology to anthropology. Some archaeologists have even attempted to pinpoint its exact location among Babylon's ancient ruins, though this remains debated among specialists. Despite all the mystery surrounding the tower, both historical and archaeological, it remains a testament to Babylonian architectural genius and the profound religious and philosophical vision of that great civilization. The tower was never merely stone and clay, but rather embodied ancient man's worldview and his relationship with the celestial forces he believed governed his destiny. Today, thousands of years after the first ziggurats were built in Mesopotamia, the Tower of Babel continues to inspire architects, artists, and thinkers worldwide. It has transformed from an ancient relic into a universal symbol of human ambition and our yearning for knowledge and connection with higher, more sublime realms. This is the power of great symbols immortalized by civilizations. They transcend the boundaries of time and space to remain alive in humanity's collective memory. Nebuchadnezzar II. The visionary who built Babylon's glory in an era when empires rose and fell like ocean waves, Nebuchadnezzar II emerged as Babylon's greatest monarch, transforming his city into a jewel adorning the brow of history. His reign marked a comprehensive civilizational leap that extended far beyond military and political achievements to encompass arts, sciences, engineering, and culture. When he ascended the throne after his father Nabopolassar, founder of the Chaldean dynasty, he faced the immense challenge of preserving a fledgling kingdom amid regional powers like Egypt and Assyria. But Nebuchadnezzar was no ordinary king. He was a strategic genius whose visionary accomplishments permanently altered the map of the ancient world. On battlefields, Nebuchadnezzar demonstrated unparalleled brilliance. At the decisive Battle of Carchemish in 605 BCE, he crushed the Egyptian army under Pharaoh Necho II, ending Egyptian ambitions in the Levant. This was no ordinary military victory, but a geopolitical turning point that redrawn regional power boundaries. His repeated campaigns in the Levant and Palestine cemented Babylonian control over vital trade routes. Most famous was his campaign against Judah, culminating in the prolonged siege of Jerusalem that ended with the city's conquest and destruction of Solomon's temple in 586 BCE. The Jewish exile to Babylon wasn't merely punitive, but a deliberate policy to transfer skilled laborers and talents to the rising capital. Yet Nebuchadnezzar was more than a battle-hardened commander. He was a civilization architect. He transformed Babylon into the wonder of the ancient world, a city dazzling in beauty and technological sophistication. His greatest architectural project was rebuilding the city with a new vision befitting an imperial capital. He constructed massive walls unprecedented in human history, wide enough for a four-horse chariot to turn around atop them, according to ancient accounts. He erected magnificent gates, most famously the Ishtar Gate adorned with golden and lapis lazuli glazed bulls and dragons. The processional way connecting the gate to the main temple was equally magnificent, its walls decorated with animal and mythological reliefs, narrating a great civilization story. At the city's heart rose the famous Etemenanke ziggurat, likely the inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel. This massive seven-tiered structure served as Marduk's temple and a symbolic ladder connecting earth to heaven. The Hanging Gardens, one of the seven wonders, remain Nebuchadnezzar's most enigmatic and astonishing architectural marvel. Legend claims he built them for his beloved wife Amytis, who longed for her mountainous homeland, though archaeologists still seek definitive evidence of their exact location. Administratively, Nebuchadnezzar demonstrated rare organizational genius. He divided the empire into provinces governed by competent officials and established an advanced postal system for rapid communication across the vast kingdom. His water canal projects transformed arid lands into fertile fields producing crops that fed cities and enriched treasuries. His economic policies proved wise, encouraging domestic and foreign trade while implementing precise standards for commercial transactions, weights, and measures. Religiously, Nebuchadnezzar elevated Marduk's status as chief deity, strengthening imperial religious unity. Notably devout, he personally participated in religious rituals and devoted state resources to temple maintenance and decoration. Yet he maintained remarkable tolerance for other faiths, permitting exiled Jews to practice their religion and protecting temples of subject peoples. Culturally and scientifically, Nebuchadnezzar's reign saw unprecedented flourishing. Babylonian. Astronomers achieved remarkable precision in recording planetary and stellar movements. Mathematics and medicine advanced significantly, while literature and languages thrived. The Library of Babylon, housing thousands of clay tablets, became a knowledge center benefiting subsequent civilizations. Yet Nebuchadnezzar's accomplishments faced challenges. He confronted repeated rebellions in subject territories, particularly the Levant. His relations with priests and religious authorities experienced periodic tensions. Late in life, some sources describe him suffering a strange illness that made him withdraw from people, what some modern scholars speculate may have been mental illness. After Nebuchadnezzar II's death in 562 BCE, his empire declined rapidly. His successors couldn't match his genius, and Babylon soon fell to Cyrus the Great's Persians. But Nebuchadnezzar's legacy endured, testifying to a golden age when Babylon stood as the civilized world's center. He truly ranks among history's greatest builders, leaving physical and intellectual monuments that still inspire awe over 2,500 years after his passing. The military campaigns of Nebuchadnezzar II, forging the Neo-Babylonian Empire, in an age where kingdoms were carved by the sword and expansionist ambitions drove kings to war, Nebuchadnezzar II emerged as the greatest military leader in Neo-Babylonian history. His campaigns were not mere raids for plunder, but rather a comprehensive strategic project to build a vast empire. This brilliant monarch understood that military power alone could not sustain a great nation. It had to be coupled with sharp political vision and wise economic management. Nebuchadnezzar's military saga began with the decisive Battle of Carchemish in 605 BCE against Pharaoh Necho II's Egyptian forces. This was no ordinary clash of armies, but a struggle for influence over the vital trade routes of the Levant. His crushing victory broke Egyptian power and forced their retreat beyond the Sinai, establishing Babylon as the sole superpower of the Near East. With his southern flank secured, Nebuchadnezzar turned west to the small Levantine kingdoms vacillating between Egyptian and Babylonian allegiance. His policy combined carrot and stick, offering protection and trade privileges for loyalty, but unleashing brutal force against rebellion. This approach became starkly evident in his dealings with Judah, torn between pro-Egyptian and pro-Babylonian factions. Jerusalem represented a major obstacle in Nebuchadnezzar's imperial project. When King Zedekiah broke his oath and allied with Egypt, Nebuchadnezzar delivered an unforgettable lesson. His 18-month siege systematically starved this city into submission. The fall of Jerusalem wasn't mere military conquest, but a seismic event that altered regional history. The destruction of Solomon's temple and the Babylonian captivity of Judah's elite became defining moments, though surprisingly, Nebuchadnezzar granted the exiles considerable freedoms in Babylon, even appointing some to important positions. The Phoenician coast presented different challenges. Coastal cities like Tyre possessed powerful navies controlling Mediterranean trade routes. Rather than engage in unequal naval combat, Nebuchadnezzar imposed a 13-year land blockade that gradually strangled Tyre's economy without risking his forces in uncertain battles. Eventually, Tyre accepted Babylonian terms while retaining some autonomy. As an administrator, Nebuchadnezzar showed remarkable skill in governing conquered territories. He divided his empire into provinces overseen by accountable officials, developed advanced road networks for military and commercial traffic, and established efficient courier systems to manage his vast domains. Economically, Nebuchadnezzar maximized resources from subject lands, importing Lebanese cedar, Arabian spices, and Levantine stone for his building projects while developing these regions as markets for Babylonian goods. His military innovations revolutionized siege warfare with new engines and tactics, while his professional army and elite cavalry became models of military organization. Yet despite his victories, Nebuchadnezzar faced mounting challenges in his later years. Subject peoples grew restless, imperial treasuries strained under the weight of massive construction projects and prolonged wars, and new powers like the Persians gathered strength on the eastern horizon. When Nebuchadnezzar II died in 562 BCE, he left a vast but troubled empire. His successors lacked his political acumen and military genius, and the empire soon crumbled. Yet his military achievements remained the gold standard of imperial warfare and administration for centuries. Truly one of antiquity's greatest commanders, Nebuchadnezzar was the architect of the Neo-Babylonian Empire that left an indelible mark on Near Eastern history. His campaigns reshaped the political landscape from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, creating an imperial model that would influence subsequent empires for generations. The cities he built, the trade routes he controlled, and the administrative systems he implemented became the foundation upon which later powers like Persia would build their own empires. Even in decline, the systems Nebuchadnezzar established continued to shape the region's political and economic structures, proving the enduring impact of his military and political vision. In the heart of Mesopotamia, where myths intertwine with history, Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar II witnessed an unprecedented architectural renaissance unlike anything humanity had seen before. This visionary king was both architect and patron of the arts, transforming his city into a dazzling mosaic that embodied power, beauty, and spirituality. His achievements were not mere stone structures, but an integrated architectural system, reflecting a comprehensive civilizational vision. The Ishtar Gate stood as Nebuchadnezzar's most magnificent masterpiece, that colossal portal clad in turquoise blue glazed bricks and adorned with hundreds of bas-relief bulls and dragons, symbols of the gods Marduk and Adad. This was no ordinary city gate, but a political and religious manifesto proclaiming Babylon's grandeur and divine favor. Under Nebuchadnezzar's supervision, Babylonian craftsmen pioneered revolutionary glazed brick techniques, using special kilns reaching extreme temperatures to ensure the color's durability across centuries. The processional way connecting the gate to Esagila Temple was another engineering marvel. Nebuchadnezzar paved this sacred path with massive stone slabs, each meticulously carved and expertly fitted. Flanking walls decorated with lion reliefs, symbols of Ishtar, appeared to guard royal processions during religious festivals. These reliefs were created through an exacting technique, where designs were first carved into soft bricks before firing, ensuring precise detailing. At the city's heart, Nebuchadnezzar rebuilt the great Ziggurat-Atamananki, likely inspiring the biblical Tower of Babel legend. This seven-tiered monolith, each level painted a different color, defied architectural conventions. Builders employed complex buttressing and retaining walls for stability, while an elaborate drainage system protected foundations from floods. Perhaps Nebuchadnezzar's most controversial achievement was the Hanging Gardens, that architectural wonder counted among the seven wonders. If real, they would have required advanced hydraulic engineering. Imagine an irrigation system lifting Euphrates water to the garden's summit, possibly using screw pumps or an intricate network of water wheels and channels. These gardens, if they existed, would testify to Babylonian mastery over nature's challenges. Urbanistically, Nebuchadnezzar reorganized Babylon with integrated city planning. He divided the city into specialized districts, paved broad avenues, and developed an advanced sewage system using terracotta pipes. The massive double walls surrounding Babylon served defensive purposes while proclaiming the city's might. The royal palace introduced groundbreaking concepts in regal architecture. The immense throne hall spanning over 50 meters utilized glazed brick columns supporting ceilings, creating unprecedented interior spaces. Innovative ventilation systems employed double walls and strategically placed windows to create natural airflow. In building materials, Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon developed new types of high-strength baked bricks and used northern Iraqi bitumen as waterproofing. These material technologies gave Babylonian structures exceptional longevity. Nebuchadnezzar's architectural vision formed part of a grander project to establish Babylon as the civilized world's capital. Every placed brick, every selected color reflected a philosophy integrating beauty, functionality, and symbolism. He understood architecture as more than roofs and walls. It was an expression of civilizational identity and political power. Over 2,500 years later, Babylon's ruins still narrate the story of this extraordinary king and his ambitious architectural project. His achievements culminated centuries of Mesopotamian expertise, while bearing his distinctive imprint as patron of arts and sciences. In every corner of ancient Babylon, we find testimony to a remarkable creative mind that blended engineering, brilliance, aesthetic refinement, and forward-looking vision into enduring monuments of human civilization.